welcome you all to this session. We are going to talk about the cream of KDD, and I am talking about one aspect of it in detail in this session, which is called DKF or Domain Knowledge Framework. It has two components, so as we go along, we'll do it. Now, the whole session is covered in two parts. What you will see is part one, where we'll cover the introduction. We'll also share why we think it is important and some component of it. And then we will also do a small demo, maybe about 10 to 12 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on how much time we have. We will do that session, the demonstration towards the end. And then tomorrow we will cover the features of DKF. There are 8 features. So we'll cover in detail. We'll go in a little more detail tomorrow. Fine, so let's get started. Now, before I get into what we are talking about, the domain knowledge framework or DKF, as I said, let's first understand that why do we need business knowledge, right? I mean, we all understand, but still it's important to understand in a little more detail in terms of why do we value business knowledge so much. So if I look at from a competency of a business analyst, any analyst will agree with me that when we talk about a business analyst, they play a very, very important role in the whole system development or maintenance aspect. If you look at the skill set or competency of a business analyst, it evolves around 3 areas: technique, interpersonal skills, and business knowledge, right? And when we say technique, I mean, there could be multiple different things which can be included there, like your requirement management, the modeling, even the investigation technique could be part of that. Interpersonal skill, we all understand the communication skill, how you work with the team, how do you adapt to different scenario and all of that. But what we are going to focus today is more on the business knowledge. And in that business knowledge also, I'm talking more specifically on the vertical domain, right? So business knowledge could be vertical domain or horizontal domain. Vertical domain, typically what we call industry, right? That's could be insurance, banking, healthcare, manufacturing, aviation, all these industry. So our focus in this session will be more on the vertical domain. Now, any business analyst having a good knowledge of the business in which that person is expert in, plays a very, very important role, because it provides the subject knowledge for any software development, right? Or even during maintenance. So throughout the life cycle of any project, the knowledge of the business, why something is being done, why something is being done in a particular way which we are looking at, right? That remains a core skill. And getting the requirement understood properly, or even the test conditions or test acceptance criteria understood correctly, the knowledge of the business becomes very, very important. So it is a subject matter knowledge, right? So it's very, very important from a software development. But if you look at limitations today, and I'm talking more from an IT industry perspective, because IT industry caters to multiple industries, right? Today you may be working for a retail client. Tomorrow you may be working for a manufacturing client. Third day, you could be part of a healthcare, life science, right? So, if you are in the IT industry, you have to cater to multiple different industries. And some roles like business analyst typically caters to one particular industry. But there also we are seeing a shift where people are expected you to know at least 2 or 3 industries, somewhat related. For example, if you're in banking, maybe people will expect you to know something about insurance, right? BFSI, that kind of a area. If you are in retail, people will expect you to know consumer, business. So some sort of a relation. When you talk about energy, it could be oil and gas, it could be electrical energy, it could be other gas, all those kind of things. So we are seeing expectation that, as a business analyst, you should know at least 2 or 3 different industries. But picking up that knowledge is not so easy because they are really vast, and also the amount of knowledge which are there, they are scattered, and they are in a, I would say, in a bookish form, or maybe in some presentation, maybe in some videos. It's in all over different places. It's not very structured, so to say, right? So if you have to build that knowledge, it takes a time. It takes a lot of time. Okay, and also the access to experts is sometimes limited, right? So that's the limitation. But what we are trying to aim is to address this limitation through this particular technique. So what you will see in this session, first you will see, I will talk about domain knowledge framework, or DKF as we call it. We will also cover the features of DKF. This I will cover maybe in the second session, that is tomorrow. But at a high level, I will talk about what are those features. And we will also touch upon how we can leverage this knowledge through DKF in the software development. This will be done through a sibling of DKF, which is called AKM. So I will cover a little bit of that as well, right? So that's how we'll go about it. So let's jump on, what is this business knowledge, right? While we talked about industry knowledge, but let's try and understand it little better. When we say business knowledge, what do we mean? So business knowledge typically is in 4 forms, right? And if we have to understand the business knowledge, we'll have to understand all these 4 forms, which we deal with. First, foremost is the industry knowledge. Like, for example, insurance or banking, that's industry. So how that industry works, we're talking about it. Then it's an enterprise knowledge. Now, enterprise knowledge is actually adoption of industry knowledge for a specific enterprise. For example, the example here given is SBI, for example. So if banking is industry, then the knowledge within SBI's processes, SBI's products, SBI's whole operating procedure, all of that becomes the enterprise knowledge. And this enterprise knowledge will be instantiated from the industry knowledge. So it doesn't change significantly, but gets customized for their specific need. Then comes the project knowledge. Now, project knowledge is typically within enterprise knowledge. If you need to modify something, or maybe add something, or maybe make something better, enhance some functionality or feature, so then you work on a portion of the enterprise knowledge. So that portion becomes a project knowledge for a period, for that period, 6 months, 1 year, whatever period you work on that, right? And then finally it comes to application knowledge. Application knowledge is where people use that knowledge, right? The consumer, for example, if you're accessing a bank, right, you will have an app. You will work on that. You will transfer money. You will open account. All those activity which you will do specific to that particular app. So that becomes the application knowledge. So when we say business knowledge, we are talking about all these 4 forms, right? Let's take an example to understand it a little better. So taking example of retail banking, one of the knowledge of retail banking is that saving account is an interest bearing account. Now, any retail bank you go, anywhere in India or even anywhere in the world, if it is a saving account, it will be an interest bearing account, right? So that's the industry knowledge. How we take it enterprise knowledge? Take example of, let's say, SBI. Now, SBI can decide that they will give an interest rate of 3% per annum. Now, industry knowledge says it will be a interest bearing account, but it doesn't mention how much interest you have to pay or in what frequency you have to pay, right? So as an enterprise, you decide that I will pay 3% per annum. Some other may say I will pay 1% per quarter. right? So, that becomes the enterprise knowledge. So as a business analyst, you need to understand the enterprise knowledge. Now, let's say the same bank, SBI, they are trying to offer a separate account or separate interest rate for senior citizen, right? So they will pull out a portion of the enterprise knowledge and then they will make some changes there. They will identify if this account is for the senior citizen, right? They will put some age, they will put some changes in the logic, how the process is being done. And that portion, which is identified for those changes, builds the project knowledge. And then what we do, we work on those changes. We modify data structure, we modify some logics in those applications, we test it, we build it, we look through all positive, negative conditions. And once we are all satisfied, then we push it back into the enterprise knowledge. So now the enterprise knowledge is enhanced. So you will have a regular saving account, which is 3%. And if it is a senior citizen account, then 3% plus 0.25%, right? So 3.25%. So now industry knowledge is there. The enterprise knowledge is now enhanced from where it was. Project knowledge is for the duration, for that the project is there. And application knowledge reside in the application which people will use. So I hope this would have clarified in terms of how the different levels of knowledge we are talking about, different forms of knowledge. Now, if we look at from a professional perspective and particularly business analyst perspective, then why we think this different sort of knowledge is important for any business analyst. So if you talk about a fresher, right, a fresher business analyst, somebody who's just about to start his or her career, right? For that particular person, before getting into an organization, getting a good understanding of the industry will be very, very important, right? Knowing the business, right? If you want to build your career in banking, you should know how the banking as an industry works. But once you are into the system, let's say you have joined SBI or ICICI or HDFC, whichever bank, this becomes your enterprise. So you have to understand the internal knowledge of that particular entity or that particular bank. So that becomes your enterprise knowledge. So as you become experienced business analyst, you need to understand the enterprise knowledge, which is important for running that operations of that particular enterprise. Plus, you will also know about the project knowledge, as the different project progresses. Now, typically at a time, you will have multiple projects going on, any project, which will address some requirement of regulatory change, which could be any enhancement in the functionality, it could be some new features getting added, all sort of things. So if you look at from a necessity perspective, I would say as a fresher, knowing industry knowledge is very important, acquiring that knowledge. If it is experienced one, then enhancing your knowledge, and enhancing knowledge, both enterprise as well as project knowledge, becomes important. Yeah, what we normally call functional knowledge, when we, in IT terms, when people interact with business knowledge or customer and all that, we normally refer to functional knowledge, which is nothing but enterprise and industry knowledge together. And using that knowledge, we pull out the project knowledge, which is used for any software development. So that's at a high level what we talk about it. I'll just take a small pause. Any query, any suggestions, anything which you have at this point of time before I move to the next part?
So there is one question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
So it says, it's from Ashish Kumar. So he says that when we say SBI knowledge, there can be in a very fragmented form. They can have some enhancement data in a PPT or Confluence or Word file, Google Docs. So does DKF consider any tool or framework for collating this knowledge base?
Excellent question, Ashish. So, and that's exactly what DKF is trying. So what DKF is focused on, and maybe you will see it as we go along, but at a high level, I'll say the DKF's focus is two things. One is to structure the knowledge. Today that knowledge is scattered all over. Like you said, it could be in PPT or in some document. So one is to structure it, and second is to digitize that knowledge in a way where you can easily access it, right? So both is what we are trying. Okay, good, excellent question, and we will see how we will do that. So now we will cover DKF in a little more detail about how it addresses the structuring part. But before we do that, let's look at how we are focused on digitizing this knowledge. So as I said, it presents currently the knowledge is present in bookish form, could be in multiple different PPTs, as Ashish you mentioned. It could be maybe some video somewhere. It could be even in the mind of some of the experts, right? They know what it is, and maybe it's scattered all over, some images, some diagram. It could be in multiple different forms. What DKF is trying is to structure it and digitize that knowledge. To do that, the first thing what DKF is doing is to pick up that knowledge at a micro level, or what we call it atomic piece of knowledge. So capturing knowledge at the granularest level, so that becomes the ultimate lowest level of knowledge, which cannot be broken down any further. So when we do that, and from there we build the whole structure, then it becomes very easy to refer to that knowledge, or if you need to modify anything, the impact of that through the relationship it has with other atomic pieces of knowledge. So that's what DKF tries, structuring and digitizing that knowledge. And we will see how it does. So DKF, if I have to summarize, it's a framework, actually emerging framework, which is really focused on reusing the common and digitized structure. I want to re-emphasize on common and digitized. Common because it is using the same structure for any industry. If you want it for banking, you can use this framework. If you want for aviation, you can use this framework. You want for manufacturing, you can use for the same framework, right? And in every place, it is digitizing that knowledge in a micro level, right? In the atomic pieces. Along with this, the sibling of DKF, which I told you earlier, is atomic knowledge model, or AKM, that takes this knowledge forward, right? And picks up the portion of the enterprise knowledge for which the project has to be done, or what we call it project knowledge, and then takes it through the whole software development life cycle so that you can build the whole software. Today, we are focused only in DKF, so we'll focus more on DKF, but I will cover just a high level what AKM is. And tomorrow again, when we talk about it, we will only focus on DKF features of that. Maybe AKM, some other time we will cover that. Now these two together, DKF plus AKM, is knowledge driven development, or KDD, what we normally call it. So KDD is kind of a parent, and DKF and atomic knowledge model AKM are the two offspring of knowledge driven development. It provides a lot of benefit, scientific learning. It makes it easier to pick up knowledge. It is focused a lot on reuse, right? If you have a knowledge piece somewhere, you don't need to have a duplicate of that. The same knowledge can be used. Traceability across the whole framework, you can trace. If you identify a change in one place, you can identify through the relationship where all it is impacting, right? So all of those things are there, right? And it helps the collaboration and all that, make it a little easier. And this is based on the two books written by Manoj Kumar Lal. One was in 2018, which was knowledge driven development. And then recently, last year, he expanded the DKF part of that into a new book, which was published in May 2023. It's called Digitize Industry Knowledge. This has been presented in a couple of conferences also. This has been picked up by a few institutes as an elective subject as well. And these are available on Amazon if anybody is interested to do that. So now let's look at DKF in a little more detail. So DKF has 4 basic elements using which DKF, the whole framework is there. The first is focused on systemic acquisition of industry knowledge. So here DKF captures the industry knowledge in a way where the related knowledge is kind of clubbed together. For example, if you're talking about industry, you need to know what that industry is all about, right? So that's introduction, how the industry evolved, that kind of information, different features of that industry, like that. You will have different applications, stakeholders, the trend, the regulatory influences, even glossary, of each industry is unique, right? So all of this is kind of captured. So this gives you an idea about the industry knowledge. We call it contextual knowledge because it gives you the context of that industry. The good thing about this knowledge is that it is relatively static. When I say relatively static, what I mean is it won't change every week or every month, right? Some of the things will get added, some of the things will get modified, maybe in few years' time, but it will not change substantially, every month or every quarter and all that. And then there's a core piece of a business knowledge, which we call inherent knowledge, which is quite dynamic. And this knowledge is made out of products. So each industry will have certain products, the processes, the life cycle of that product, and a term which we used, knowledge nugget here, that includes all those atomic pieces of knowledge. So that's covered here. That could be in form of definition, communication, business rule, guideline, report, data. All of that is captured through that knowledge nugget. So this is how the whole knowledge is structured in the contextual knowledge, which is relatively static, and then in the inherent knowledge, which is more dynamic as we go along, as part of the project and all that. Now, when industry adopts it, when the enterprises adopts it, then it becomes enterprise knowledge for them. So two different enterprises can adopt it in a different way, or instantiate it or customize it for their own purpose. So that's one aspect of DKF, systemic acquisition of industry knowledge. Second is the core structure of DKF, and this caters to the inherent knowledge part. So here starts with the product. So every industry will have a product, right? I mean, it could be product, you call it, or service, call it. We are using the term product in general. Like bank will have a saving account, insurance could be a term insurance plan, automobile could be car, something like that. Okay. And then we have processes. The life cycle could be launch of the product, administration of the product, or withdrawal of the product. These are the example of the processes. So on this mesh, between product and process, you will have a cross section. This we call it knowledge nodes. Now this is very, very powerful thing because all the knowledge is contained at these nodes, right? Basically, nodes is a cross section of the product and the process. So anything which you are doing in the industry, will happen at that cross section. So this, you can consider it as a container of all the knowledges, and all these knowledges are retained as a knowledge nugget at all these nodes. For example, if let's say in term insurance policy, there could be a condition that or rule which says that the minimum age to take term insurance policy is 16 years. Now that's an atomic piece of knowledge which you will have to understand or you will have to address. So that's atomic piece of knowledge which is retained as a knowledge nugget. So DKF captures this knowledge in this format, right? This is the core structure of product, process, knowledge node, and knowledge nugget. Then third is, this is expandable structure. What I mean is that this can be, it's not static at top level, right? You can define this knowledge at top level, and then at every node, like here, if you see, this is the level 1. Every node can be broken down to the next lower level. So product will become sub-products. The processes will become sub-processes. So you can break it down to the next level, and then you can go to the next level. So this is level 2. You can go down to level 3. You can again break it down to the next lower level, from level 2, level 3 to level 4. Like that you can do. So, you can expand, you can keep going down, you can keep breaking it down. The knowledge still remains in the knowledge nugget. It remains at all these levels. But the knowledge which you gathered at, let's say, level 1 or even level 2 to some extent, you call it generic knowledge, right? Because this is still at a high level. Typically, the senior management will refer to this knowledge because they need to handle those kind of interaction. But when you go down to the level 3 and level 4, typically for most industries, by level 4 you will go to the bottommost. But some cases you might need to go down to 5th level. You can do that also, right? It doesn't stop. You can go down any level. So that's a detailed knowledge. This is where most of the transactions happen. This is where most of the interaction which happens with your consumer, right? So we call it the detailed knowledge, or even fit for purpose knowledge. This is the knowledge which is used on a daily basis, right? So that's the third aspect of DKF. And fourth, the knowledge nugget, which is capturing all the atomic piece of knowledge. We are digitizing it. And how we are digitizing? We are digitizing it using the knowledge graph. Knowledge graph, you would all know, right? This is where you have a relationship between different entities, all of that. We are using the same model to connect all those atomic pieces of knowledge. So this helps in terms of knowing how each knowledge is linked with another knowledge, their relationship and all of that. So that's what we do. Now, another beauty of this is that while we talk about two types of knowledge nugget here, while we talk about the knowledge nugget, we have two types of knowledge nugget. One is the business knowledge nuggets, which is what we are, we pick up from the business. But we also identify the knowledge nugget on the IT side, how this is implemented in IT. And that makes it very powerful, because then you can see how that relationship is really working, right? And if there's any change happening in one place, how it is going to impact, in the IT side. So that's mixed. So these are the four things: structured knowledge, the core structure, then expandable, and finally using knowledge graph for knowledge nugget. I'll just take another pause. If any questions or any doubt, I can take that.
This is Jayashankar Sharma. I have got one question.
Okay.
Yeah. First of all, kudos to you. I'm already having this book that
Thank you.
The writer Manoj Kumar Lalji has personally given to me. And I've got first question is there any method by which we can ascertain that there is no further knowledge required from this stage? That is, we have reached to atomic stage in your language.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And second thing, that these days, very frequently software are changing. And so do we have any system where we can find appropriate or optimum software in terms of cost, in terms of efficiency, etc., from this knowledge curve? Two ideas are in my mind.
Okay, great question. would you mind if I take this as part of second session? Because there we
Okay.
will talk about the features of DKF, and that will answer both your question to a
Okay.
great extent.
Okay. Okay,
Right?
great. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
all. That's all for now.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay, so let me move on. I will cover the AKM in a very quickly, because AKM, as I said, is a sibling of DKF, but it uses DKF for project knowledge. So I will just cover a little bit about AKM. So what AKM does is, if you look at top portion here, this is how the DKF spreads the knowledge, right? Or breaks down the knowledge at different levels. Whereas if you look at from an IT system perspective, you will have systems, then applications. System is at a higher level. Below that, you will have multiple applications. Within the applications, you have multiple components, and then you will have business transactions, which is going on. So AKM connects these two layers, right? So, transaction at the lowest level and system at a highest level, right? Now, this is possible because it is doing through digitization of that knowledge, both knowledge nugget business and knowledge nugget IT at a high level. But how it does is, I will cover in next few slides. So first, it reuses this knowledge. Whatever we have built in the DKF, it reuses that. It will pull out information from that, whether you are doing requirement analysis, solution design, whatever, right? It reuses that knowledge. Then it helps in terms of building that knowledge for your project execution, delivery, and all of that. And the same knowledge is also used for the whole project management, right? Now, I will cover the first part, how it uses this reuse. So what AKM does, it starts with the enterprise knowledge. And from that enterprise knowledge, it will, it will ring fence a portion which you want to modify. Like here, if you see the circle, this is a small portion which is as ring fenced. Now in this, you see there's one product, right? This blue line, and there's two processes. And these are the nodes on which all the knowledge nuggets are there. So when you're talking about that particular project, it ring fences it, right? Once it has done that, that's identifying the project. Then it, what we call requirement analysis, at this level, it identifies all the knowledge nuggets, or which is at the business level, which needs to be looked into. You can look it for modification. You can look it for retaining it as it is, because whatever knowledge is there, you just retain it. You can even delete it, maybe something which is not needed anymore because of the change you are doing, or you may have to add a new business entity there, sorry, knowledge nugget business there, right? So once you ring fence, it identifies all this knowledge nuggets. Once you have done that, it will go into looking at the relationship between them. Again, some relationship are already there, so you will look at whether those relationship is making sense. Do they change because you're modifying something, or do you build new relationship because you have added something, or you remove some relationship because you have deleted something? So that aspect gets covered as well. AKM takes care of that. Once you have done that, then it connects it with the knowledge nugget in the IT side, to see how it is impacting there. And because of that relationship, you can figure out what are the things which needs to be changed on the IT side. What are those components? What are those applications? What are those transactions which is getting impacted, right? So that it helps in terms of building. And once you have done that, you also look at the test design. Now the beauty here is that when you look at this knowledge nugget business, not all of them needs to be tested, because a lot of those knowledge could be, let's say, for example, definition. That's a definition is also business knowledge, but don't need to test for definition, right? Whereas when it comes to the guideline or rules, right, those needs to be tested. So you identify what are those business knowledge nugget business, which is of guidance and data type, which you can then create a test scenario and test for that. So at high level, this is how it does. Now, once you have completed that, then you put it back into the enterprise knowledge. So in simple terms, we call it ABCD mechanism, where A is identifying all the business knowledge nuggets, B is their relationship, and C and D is their quality assurance, where it is consistent or inconsistent or something is not making sense. That can be pulled out. In fact, a lot of things will automatically come based on how this changes has happened. The AKM will flag it saying this is inconsistent, you need to do something if you missed out, right? But of course you can do the manual review, and once all of this done, then you put it back into the enterprise knowledge. So as you see here, this portion is put back. The number of circles which you see here has gone up. Earlier it was just 2, now it is 5. Maybe as part of this project, some more component were added, some application were added, so it gets enriched. So that's what it does. But the background of all of this is the DKF, right? And for project manager management, we call it RRR, which is for reuse for A and B together, where we are putting those knowledge, pulling those knowledge. And next to R is for review and rectify, which is like test, validation, quality management, all those aspects. I'm just rushing through AKM part because I'm just covering at a high level. I'm not getting into too much detail in that because focus for us is more on the DKF. Any question here before I move to the last section, which will be on the demo?
There are a couple of questions, sir. So should we take them, all of them now, or like later?
Maybe we can take 1 or 2.
Okay. Yeah, so Ranganathan sir has expressed a thought that knowledge has an expiry date. So I believe KDD helps us to overcome this challenge.
Absolutely great. Thanks a lot. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, knowledge is always evolving. So you can say, what was knowledge 4 years back would have changed to a new form today. So I would say, yeah, it kind of evolves. So great point. Thanks a lot.
So we'll take one more.
Yep.
Yeah, so Keshav has asked, as a project developer, how important is it to have industry knowledge? And to get industry knowledge, developer depends on a business analyst, and while development, we need to stick with that.
Excellent question, Keshav. So, I remember when I started my career way back in 1990, we were doing everything, right? We were the analyst, we were the designer, we were the coder, tester, even maintenance. So we cannot go back and say that, I don't know, somebody else built it, right? But, over the years, we specialized in different areas and for a good reason, right? Because we wanted to focus, we wanted to bring efficiency and all of that. Now, while all that is there, where we felt a gap is that when we were building that, we knew exactly what customer wanted. It was a direct input which we are getting. Now that have started kind of diluting over the years, right? When we become an expert, the business analyst will tell me why something we are doing. The architect will tell me how solution is done. I as a coder will just do a coding. Somebody else will do the testing, right? It has kind of created multiple silos. What we are seeing in the current scenario is all those are merging again, right? If you look at the agile world, right? We are not talking about a separate developer, separate tester, separate designer, analyst, all of that is coming together. So yes, as we see, there's a need to understand the industry in which we are working on, right? And the more we know, more we are aware of, more productive we are in. And agile world, definitely that's what is happening. So as we move from waterfall more towards agile, and even in DevOps, that scenario is. So you're right. It's very, very important to have the knowledge of the industry. Okay, thanks. So let me just quickly go to the last sections, which is the demo. Okay, I just said I will talk about the features at high level. I'm just telling you, these are the 8 features: the contextual knowledge, the interspread glossary, huge list of all the glossaries which is used. Reusable common structure, I already talked about this. Knowledge node hierarchy. As I said, knowledge node is where all the knowledge is retained, right? It's a container. Knowledge nuggets at the node. This is the atomic piece of knowledge. Quantification of knowledge. This is very, very powerful. First time we have identified that how many, atomic pieces of knowledge you need to know for you to be having a sufficient knowledge to drive that particular activity, right? If you are a coder, if you're at a lowest level, you can identify that. If you're at a highest level, what is the total number of knowledge pieces? If you would consider yourself to be doing your job, right? So we have been able to quantify to a great extent, right? So that makes it quite powerful. I would say this is one of the most powerful aspect of DKF, the quantification at each level, level 1, level 2, level 3, and all that. Single source of knowledge, right? I already talked about. Once you make it atomic, that becomes a piece of knowledge which you reuse throughout, right? And multiple types of knowledge nugget. We will cover each of this in tomorrow, but I thought I will just at a high level, give a view about these features. And these features is handling able to the current day limitations, whether it's a subject knowledge, vastness, or unstructured knowledge, all those aspects it kind of cover. Okay, so let me jump into demonstration. 1 second. So as I get into demonstration, let me just tell you that what we have done is we have pulled out a section of the knowledge. We have not pulled out the whole knowledge because that becomes quite massive, but we have pulled out a section of the knowledge for the purpose of for this demo. And I'm picking up one industry. Insurance comes on the top, so I'm picking that here. Idea is to show this tool, how this tool is there in today's shape and form, right? So this is the landing page, knowledge-driven development. Within that, you have industry knowledge, you have enterprise knowledge, you have project knowledge. We will focus on industry knowledge. That's what we are talking today. When somebody, an organization wants to adopt it, this particular tool, they will pull their knowledge that will form into enterprise knowledge. The same structure can be used, right? And on all screen, you will have this question mark, which is for help, right? So in any screen, if you click, it will give you an idea about what this is all about, right? Again, right now it is just some sample information we have put in, but in the real scenario, it is quite exhaustive in terms of help. And all pages, you will have it. Okay. So let me click this industry knowledge. So when I click, it will ask me why I am coming here. Am I looking to see this information, or I'm trying to update the information, or am I trying to pull out some information from that, right? For example, when you do this project, right, you will pull out information, you will pull out report, you will pull out the relationship and all that, which is to be reviewed and all, right? So, it comes. But when I'm talking about industry knowledge, I will restrict myself to display information, because here I'm talking more in terms of knowing how this knowledge is captured. So the first page starts with the contextual knowledge. Like, since I'm talking about insurance, it is showing me, this industry contextual knowledge. I mean, I can click on this and I can get, different type of knowledge, like purpose of insurance, transfer risk. We click any of this, we will get a little more detail about that, right? That's how, the whole knowledge is captured there, right? We can click any other, it will show, that particular, knowledge piece, right? Now, and we also have glossary, right? Now, glossary is quite exhaustive. I said, again, we have pulled out some aspect of it, not everything, but it includes all the terms which is there in the industry. So hash means it will show all the terms. But if you pick any letter, right? For example, let me click C. It will pick up the terms which is starting with C, like coverage, contract, claim, capital, all of that, right? You can pick any other. Let's say H. H has hazard, for example, here, right? You click on that, it will give you. Okay, right now within that there's, as I said, from a demo perspective, we'll pull out. Right? You can pull out other information like O, right? Open market option, OTC. Now OTC is a very interesting one, because if you look at OTC as a term, almost every industry has OTC. If you talk to banking, OTC has a different meaning. Talk to life science, pharmacy, OTC has a different thing. Over the counter, the drugs which you take it. But in terms of insurance, OTC means a different thing. So when you are trying to build that knowledge, it helps you to understand, in my context, in my industry, what this OTC means, right? So you can build. So this is very powerful from that perspective. Then we get into the inherent knowledge, which is that product process as I talked about. Again, here it can be displayed on multiple screen or on the single screen. When you go on single screen, it keeps putting it one below other. But I will use the multi-screen feature. So here it shows all the product and processes. So this is level 1. So in level 1, there are 2 products, general insurance and life insurance. And then we have 8 processes at level 1, right? And all these are cross sections on which these are the nodes on which the knowledge is there. And all of these are clickable, right? So when you click, it will tell you what general insurance is all about. You can click any process, it will give you that information as well. You will see there's no node here, because scheme administration is not valid for general insurance. So where it is not application, that will not be there. Otherwise, it's all there. And whatever is in yellow, that means you can drill down below that, right? And all these are different containers. So let me click on policy administration, for example. Right now, I go here. It shows all the different knowledge nugget at this level 1, right? And again, it's not exhaustive here because we have pulled the sample, but let me pick up anything. Let's say 73. It gives me information about this particular knowledge, right? This knowledge nugget, what it is, industry overview and all that. The whole information is kind of contained there, right? I can even see this in the knowledge graph format, right? This is how it is represented at this level. When you click a particular knowledge nugget, it will show you how this knowledge nugget is connected with other knowledge nuggets. Like this 73, on the left side, you see the definition or explanation of that. On the right side, you see all these 3 knowledge nugget which it is connected to, right? You can click, it will show you different one, right? Each knowledge. So this is one way to look at it. It makes it pretty exhaustive from that perspective. Then you can drill down. Let's say I go to next level, right? Now here we have some next level details, right? Individual life, individual retirement, policy exit processes and all that, right? Let me click on this. Okay, I get to the 3rd level, right? The whole life insurance, long-term health, endowment, all these are the sub products at level 3. And we have sub processes of that, surrender, policy maturity, all this becomes the sub process at level 3, right? If I click here, again, here you don't see any node because this is not applicable, right? Policy maturity for whole life insurance is not applicable. so it is not there. But there could be a depth, so there could be a next level where you can go down. At level 4, you see all of this is black. That means you can't drill down any further, right? But this level you can, these are all the nuggets where you can go and see what is the granular nuggets at this level, right? Like here, if you see so many of this coming, right? All of these are different nuggets which are there. Okay, so like that you can, for example, let me click any one of them. Let me see which one. Okay, let me click on this claim ID, right? This is a business data. Now, when I click on business data, it shows me some additional points, fields, because depending on the knowledge nugget types, it picks up some additional input where it is needed. It's a business data, so it's pulling up some additional information like field length, data type, how many digits and all that. In other cases, it may not be there, right? And yeah, and you can keep going up and down at different levels. You can. So all of this is available. Again, this is, as I said, is a sample right now, a subset, but through this, it helps to build the whole knowledge and take it through. Okay, and this help is on all the screens. When you click, it will be specific to that particular screen. Different screen, different kind of help will come. Okay, so I think that's all from my side. I know I have overshot time a little bit, but I hope I could give you a sense of what it is, and you could get an understanding of DKF to a great extent. Tomorrow, when we get into, we will get into little more detail on that features, 8 features, how this is shown there. So thank you. I'll end my session here, and I'll open the floor for any question, any doubt, anything. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the session. And yeah, so we can just, there are a few more questions, so I will just read them out. So we had,
And
so
I'll reiterate that in case if we are not able to, because we have already overshot time, we will collate all those queries and we will, put the response back to you. So we'll maybe pick up a couple of questions right now.
So yeah, so when we have that these days we have organizational generative AI models. So how will KDD help there?
Excellent question. Yeah, I think, yeah, AI is something which is really enhancing the way we are working today, right? It is disrupting in some extent, but yes, it's very much there. Now, if you look at DKF, the way it is digitizing it and using the knowledge graph, it is going to the micro level, right, at the most granular level. So it is possible to use AI to pull out those knowledge. For example, let's say if something is going wrong, there's a particular product, which has a feature which is not working for any reason. Now AI can pick up from that, and because the whole knowledge is digitized, AI can quickly tell you that what are the things which is impacted because of that, what kind of changes can be done. It can suggest all of that. I mean, the scope is quite vast, but I'm just telling one scenario where it can be done. In fact, the KDT team is working very closely to see how to leverage that generative AI, to enhance it further. So yes, very much there. Any other question?
Yes, so one more question we have. Does KDD also focus on the impact of technology and levers on ever-changing domain knowledge?
Okay, so I would say great question again, but I'll say the focus is more on how we build that knowledge, how we structure the knowledge which is already there, and how we digitize that knowledge. Now, once we have structured and digitized, after that, irrespective of which technology we are using it, right, we will be able to pull it out. So focus is more on that. We are not bothered about any particular technology as such, but definitely, I mean, when it comes to technology, let's say AI, definitely we see a play for AI in that. But otherwise, in general, it is not. I won't say we are very dependent on any particular technology. No, it is. It is not. It is focused on structuring and digitizing.
Okay,
Okay,
I think
maybe we can take one last question.
one last one. Yeah. So there is one more question. So for any industry, it has many processes and many products at once. So this grid turns into a mesh. How do we control that? Do users have any filters to search for what they want?
Absolutely excellent. And that's the core of this particular model, because this model starts with the top level, level one. You break it down, the product to sub product. At all the nodes, you can keep going down. So you break it down to multiple level. Now, if you want to find out a particular product, you can do a search. It can give you. For example, uh, let's say I'm just taking a scenario where person got married, right? And person has a life insurance, and the person needs to change the nominee now. Earlier it was somebody, now the person is married, so he or she wants to put the name of spouse as a nominee. So, when you put that as a requirement, this tool, because the way it has structured the whole knowledge, it will pull out all the places where this change will impact, and from which you can pull out that information. It can even show you the relationship that since this will change, these are the relationship which it is impacting. So AKM using that ABCD, it does that. Okay, thanks. I think that's it from my side, and I hope it has given some food for thought. Definitely a powerful tool.